Hello, my name is Hannah, a 36-year-old high school teacher who recently discovered that she might inherit over $4 million. Her family is already making big plans. Her husband, Walter, an office worker 3 years her senior, joyfully declared he had quit his job to start a business with the anticipated funds. At the same time, Hannah's mother-in-law is dreamily overseeing the construction of a duplex where they could all live together, featuring her ideal kitchen. Caught in the whirlwind of their plans, Hannah tries to intervene. "Wait, I haven't received any inheritance yet. Why are you quitting jobs and building homes?" But the enthusiasm is hard to curb. Her father-in-law even suggests a celebratory trip to Florida. In the chaos, despite the confusion and her rising anger, Hannah feels powerless. The thought of her family spending her potential inheritance freely troubles her deeply. This all started a few months back. Hannah's life had been a balance of teaching and raising her daughter, Samantha, who was born shortly after she married Walter. Today she is visiting her hospitalized mother with Samantha. "Oh, Grandma, it's been a while," Samantha exclaims, greeting her grandmother who caresses her hair with a frail hand. A mysterious middle-aged man in glasses leaves the room as Hannah enters. Her mother, with eyes sparkling a soft blue, assures Hannah that all is well. Hannah reminisces about her upbringing with her immigrant parents who had moved from overseas to run a business. Raised with love and financial stability, she credits her success and values to her parents who instilled in her the importance of education and hard work from a young age. A few years after my father's passing, my mother's health declined, and she was admitted to the hospital. With her health in focus, she handed over the family business to a relative, choosing to spend her days in quiet recovery. "I'm fine, Mom. Do you need anything?" I asked during one of our visits. Her reply warmed my heart. "Just having you and Samantha come to see me is more than enough." Samantha, my 9-year-old daughter, chatted eagerly with her about school and the latest book she'd read. Watching her, I felt a surge of pride. Though I may be biased, Samantha is a bright and honest child who's navigating her formative years beautifully. When we returned home, Walter greeted us with curiosity. "How's my mother-in-law doing?" After updating him, he shared tidbits from a seminar he attended, focusing on starting a side business. Walter's been keen on increasing our income, perhaps driven by a dissatisfaction with his current job, which isn't top tier but stable enough. Combined with my teaching salary, sometimes his eagerness for more financial gain. A trait he might have inherited from his parents feels overwhelming. His parents have always had a knack for penny pinching, often awkwardly asking for money during visits, which has strained our relationship. They rarely spoil Samantha, not even with Christmas gifts. But fortunately, they live far enough away that our interactions are minimal. Despite these frictions, our home life is steady. Walter is adept with household chores, and I cherish my days with him, Samantha, and the peaceful life we've built. But then a sudden call from the hospital turned everything upside down. My mother's condition had drastically worsened, thrusting our family into a rush to be by her side. My mother's breaths were shallow, her voice barely above a whisper as she spoke her last words to me. "Hannah, I always wanted you to be happy. Cherish Samantha more than anything. I love you." Those words, filled with love and care, were the last I heard from her. My mother had dedicated her life to raising me alongside my father and had a special bond with my daughter Samantha. At her funeral, her expression was serene, and all I could do was weep alongside Samantha, who was equally devastated. Sometime after her passing, a mysterious envelope arrived at our house, bearing the seal of a law firm. Puzzled, I opened it to find a document inside. It stated that I was the sole beneficiary of my mother's will, a topic we had never discussed. With the document in hand, I decided to visit the law firm on my own. "Hello, I'm the attorney Roy," said the man who greeted me, a middle-aged gentleman with glasses I recognized from the hospital. "Heidel, you were in my mother's hospital room," I said, remembering his face. "Yes, we met there," he replied. "From that time, I was entrusted by your mother." His kind voice nearly brought me to tears again. Then he revealed something astonishing. "Your mother left you an inheritance of $6 million. When your father passed, you waived your right to the inheritance, so your mother could receive it all after taxes. This is the amount you inherit," he said. I was stunned. My parents had been wealthy, but I had never imagined the magnitude of their fortune. After marrying, I never asked them for money and avoided discussing inheritances, considering it bad luck. But here I was, feeling overwhelmed by this final gesture of love from my mother. "Your mother cared about you deeply," Roy continued, his tone reassuring. "She instructed me to assist you if necessary. Please feel free to discuss anything with me." Grateful, I thanked him multiple times and left the office feeling a mix of sorrow and gratitude. As time passed, the weight of this inheritance and my mother's enduring love stayed with me. Around the time of her 50-day memorial service, Hannah found herself increasingly troubled by her family's focus on the inheritance. Her husband, Walter, aware of her family's wealth from the days when her father ran his successful business, began to frequently inquire about the inheritance. Each time he brought it up, Hannah, still deep in mourning, asked him to drop the subject. He would comply, only to later revisit the topic, unable to hide his curiosity about the financial details. The situation worsened during the memorial service itself. Her father-in-law, perhaps trying to appear helpful, awkwardly broached the topic. "Hannah, if you're worried about managing the inheritance, we're here to help. We've dealt with family inheritance issues before. It can get tricky," he offered. His words, meant to reassure, felt hollow to Hannah, given his and her mother-in-law's usual disinterest in offering genuine help. 4 months after her mother's passing, Walter's patience seemed to wane. He confronted Hannah again, this time more directly. "Have you received your mother's inheritance yet?" Feeling a rush of discomfort, Hannah chose to mislead him. "The procedures are complicated, so not yet," she said. In truth, she had already secured the inheritance safely in a deposit box on the advice of Roy, the attorney, but felt it prudent to keep this information private. Walter seemed unusually cheerful as he retreated to the bedroom, leaving Hannah with a sense of foreboding. The next day, as she and her daughter Samantha were cleaning up after dinner, the doorbell rang. Samantha rushed to answer it, and when Hannah looked from the kitchen, she saw her in-laws standing at the door with Walter, who had just returned from work. Surprised and a bit apprehensive, Hannah wondered what brought them there. Unexpectedly, the atmosphere at home became tense when Samantha, sensing the growing unease, anxiously glanced at everyone before retreating to her room. At Hannah's urging, she asked, "What's happening here?" hoping to keep the situation calm. "We have something to celebrate today," exclaimed her father-in-law, clearly in high spirits as he pulled a beer from the fridge. Her mother-in-law, carrying the same buoyant mood, chimed in with a dreamy tone. "You've inherited over $4 million, right? We've already started on a duplex for us all to live together. It even has the modern kitchen of my dreams." Hannah, stunned, could barely process their words. "What are you talking about? I told you I haven't received any inheritance yet." Walter, her husband, with a look of satisfaction, revealed his plans. "I quit my job and decided to start a business using that inheritance," he said, assuming the money was already theirs to use. Hannah felt the room spin as her family's assumptions piled up. You've quit your job, and you're building a house. We haven't received any inheritance yet. Why are you acting like it's a done deal, ignoring her protest? Walter and her mother-in-law only grew more enthusiastic discussing plans for a trip to Florida before the duplex was completed. Then Walter, with a dismissive laugh, accused Hannah of being stingy. We've checked into it. You can't refuse an inheritance if you don't claim it within 4 months. So whether you processed it or not, the inheritance is yours. His logic was flawed, but he continued, fueled by misplaced certainty. Considering the scale of my father's company, it has to be more than $4 million. We'll live comfortably. Be sure to have the money ready for the duplex in my startup capital. Hannah's head spun as she faced the misguided enthusiasm and pressure from her husband and in-laws. Feeling trapped in a whirlwind of misunderstanding and expectation, Hannah was at her wit's end, overwhelmed by the audacity of her husband and in-laws who eagerly plotted to use the inheritance from her mother for their lavish desires. Though anger boiled within her, she couldn't bring herself to erupt, not with Samantha possibly overhearing from the next room. Needing to escape, she muttered, "I'm going outside for a bit." But her words were lost in their enthusiastic chatter about spending the inheritance. She left the house, wallowing in the cool embrace of the night, forgotten. Into the cool embrace of the night, she found solace at a hilltop park, a place steeped in memories of time spent with her mother. There, amidst the solitude, she allowed herself to cry, stifling her sobs. The injustice of the situation gnawed at her, her family's exploitation of her emotions, and their disregard for her feelings. Yet the thought of divorce tangled in her mind. How could she append Samantha's life? Her mother's parting words, "Take care of Samantha above all else," echoed in her heart, renewing her tears. A gentle voice unexpectedly addressed her. Startled, she looked up to find a stranger offering a sympathetic ear. Their conversation over the next few moments provided a sliver of comfort. 5 days later, Hannah summoned her resolve, along with her husband and in-laws, to a private room in a local restaurant. "So you finally came back home. Did you withdraw the money?" they asked, almost immediately ignoring the palpable tension. Walter added, "You shouldn't leave home without telling your husband." Ignoring their probing, Hannah reached into her bag and placed a document on the table. It was a completed divorce notice. "Walter, I want a divorce," she declared firmly. The room went silent for a moment before her husband stammered, "What are you saying?" Panic flashed across his face, and the in-laws exchanged bewildered glances. "I can't do this anymore," Hannah continued, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Walter's face flushed with anger as he retorted, "You're leaving us after getting the inheritance. You've changed because of the money, you miser." Hannah snapped back, her patience finally breaking. "Ever since I received my mother's estate, you've been out of control, quitting your job, deciding we'd live with your parents, planning to build a duplex with our savings, all without even asking me. I've had enough." The confrontation marked a turning point as Hannah stood firm against the greed and manipulation that had come to define her relationship with Walter and his parents. As they discussed a potential trip to Florida, the confrontation escalated. Who is the one who changed when the money came in? "I can't possibly stay with such people," Hannah stated firmly, her resolve unwavering. "Wait, you can't just divorce me like that," Walter protested, desperation creeping into his voice. His parents chimed in. "That's right. Our savings after marriage are shared property. Half of the inheritance belongs to Walter no matter what." "That's correct. If it comes to that, we will take $4 million with us," they declared, their faces twisted with greed as they moved closer to Hannah. Just as she was about to retort, the door to the private room slid open. Dad, Grandpa, and Grandma should know better. The inheritance Mom received doesn't become shared property, right, Mr. Roy? Samantha's voice cut through the tension as she entered the room, followed by Attorney Roy. "And who are you?" Walter demanded, his tone mixed with confusion and irritation. "I'm Attorney Roy. Hannah's mother entrusted me with this matter, and I've been advising Hannah," Roy explained as he and Samantha entered the room. The room fell silent for a moment as Walter looked visibly flustered. "That's all well and good, but wait," Walter stammered, trying to regain his composure. "The inheritance doesn't become shared property." "That's correct," Roy confirmed. Inherited property from a deceased parent does not become shared property, nor is it subject to division in a divorce. "You've got to be kidding me. Is this a mistake?" Walter blurted out, his voice tinged with disbelief. Amidst the flustered responses from Walter and his parents, Hannah was taken aback by their blatant assumption that her inheritance was up for grabs. In that case, it's even more reason not to divorce. "I'll cling to you no matter what," Walter exclaimed, his eyes bloodshot with desperation. "Stop it already," Samantha interjected firmly, her calm yet stern voice silencing the room. "Since Mom suggested divorce, has Dad ever thought about Mom once? Grandpa and Grandma only ever talk about money. They never once mentioned me." "I can't consider such people as family." Hannah looked at her daughter, her heart swelling with pride, yet aching from the bitter truths being unveiled. The room echoed with Samantha's words, underscoring the deep rift that had formed, driven by greed and misunderstanding. "On the day I found myself overwhelmed by grief and frustration over my inheritance, it was Samantha who stood by my side. She came running after me, her words fueling my resolve. Dad, Grandpa, and Grandma are out of line trying to take Grandma's legacy for themselves. Mom, I'm on your side. Let's fight this together." Heartened by her support, I contacted Roy, the attorney, to set up this crucial meeting. In the meeting, my husband and his parents tried to sway Samantha. "Samantha, it's not like that. Dad wants you to be happy," Walter pleaded. His parents added, "You'd be happier living with us, wouldn't you?" "A child shouldn't interfere." Samantha, visibly frustrated by their words, stood her ground. "I'm going with Mom. I can't bear to be with you anymore," she declared, turning away to avoid their pleading looks. Firmly, I supported her decision. "We've made up our minds. Samantha and I will be leaving." Walter, now angry, retaliated, "Hey, I've never cheated, and you can't just force a divorce. I'll hire a lawyer. We'll get that money one way or another." It was then that Roy spoke up, his voice calm yet assertive. "The issue here is not just about the money. There are serious reasons to consider not continuing this marriage, Walter. You quit your job and used household savings without permission. You decided we all should live together, and now Samantha says she can't bear it. These are all significant points we can argue." Roy continued, "Moreover, your daughter recorded everything you and your parents said about trying to claim Hannah's inheritance. That recording can also serve as evidence." Upon hearing this, Walter slumped defeated, while my in-laws turned pale, realizing the gravity of the situation. The meeting, though tense, had crystallized our path forward, underpinned by the unwavering support between Samantha and me, and the competent guidance of Roy. A year after that tumultuous meeting in the restaurant, thanks to diligent legal efforts, my divorce from Walter was finalized. Samantha and I moved into the house where my mother had lived, hoping for a fresh start. However, our peace was occasionally disturbed by letters from Walter proclaiming his love and asking us to come back. More unsettling was seeing him loiter near Samantha's school, prompting us to seek legal help again. This time, we obtained a restraining order to ensure our safety. Life quieted down after that. Rumor had it that Walter and his parents did go through with building a duplex, but life was not kind to them. My retired in-laws had to return to work in a factory, and Walter struggled to find employment, eventually settling for manual labor. From what I heard from neighbors, the duplex was a constant battleground of arguments, earning them an unfavorable reputation in the neighborhood. Meanwhile, Samantha and I enjoyed our peaceful existence, supporting each other through everything. One day, Samantha expressed a desire to study abroad in the country where her grandmother had grown up. Seeing this as an opportunity to cut ties completely with my past life and start anew, we decided to move overseas. We used a portion of my mother's inheritance for this new beginning, a decision I knew my mother would have supported. Now Samantha thrives in her new school environment, and I have resumed my teaching career abroad. Every day feels like a step forward in our journey towards lasting peace. We hope to continue living these serene days, far removed from the chaos of the past.
"This house is mine now," Emily shouted, waving a piece of paper in my face. "Dad promised it to me before he died. Here's the proof." Her smug smile made me angry, but I stayed calm. "My name is Olivia, and I'm 35 years old. I never thought I'd have to fight for my own home, especially against family. This house was a beautiful Victorian-style home where my father-in-law, George, had lived for 40 years. He passed away 3 months ago, and things have been peaceful until today." Emily walked around my living room, running her hands over the furniture I had carefully restored. "You need to pack up and leave by the weekend," she said. "I'm meeting with a realtor on Monday." I almost laughed at how bold she was. This house had been my home for 10 years. My husband James and I had put our hearts into fixing it up, keeping its old charm while making it comfortable. George had lived here with us for the last 5 years, and we had cared for him through his illness. "Emily," I said calmly, "I think you should sit down." She spun around, her fancy purse swinging. "Don't treat me like a child, Olivia. Look." She shoved the paper toward me again. "Dad wrote this before he died. He wanted me to have the house." I looked at the note. It was written in shaky handwriting and only said, "Emily, I want you to have the house." No signature, no details, just those few words. "Where did you find this?" I asked. "In Dad's study last week, when I was helping you clean," she said, making air quotes. In reality, she had come over uninvited and gone through George's things while I was at work. At that moment, James walked in. He stopped when he saw his sister standing there, looking angry. "Emily, what's going on?" "I'm taking what's mine," she said. "Dad left me the house. I have proof." She waved the note at him. James looked at me, confused. I gave him a small nod, and he understood. We had expected this. "Emily," he started, "that's not—" "Don't try to stop me," she snapped. "You always side with Olivia. But this time, I have proof. Dad wanted me to have this house, and I'm selling it." I walked over to an old desk in the corner, one of George's favorite pieces. I pulled out a thick envelope from a hidden compartment. "Funny you mentioned proof," I said. Emily rolled her eyes. "Whatever you have doesn't matter. Dad's words are clear." "Are you sure?" I asked, taking out some documents, because here is the official property deed. George transferred the house to James and me 5 years ago, when we took out a mortgage to renovate it for his care. We've also been paying the property taxes and insurance since then. Emily's face turned pale, but she quickly recovered. "That doesn't matter. Dad changed his mind. This note proves it." I laid out more papers. "This is a notarized statement from your father, written 3 months before he passed, when he was still thinking clearly. It says he wanted James and me to keep the house as a family home. He knew we were the ones taking care of him." Emily's hands shook. "No, that can't be true. He wouldn't." "There's more," I said quietly. "Here are records of all the work we've done on the house. And here are records showing how many times you refused to help with his care or medical costs." Emily's face turned completely white. She sat down, her dress wrinkling. But the note." James stepped forward, his voice firm but gentle. "Emily, Dad could barely write in his last 2 weeks. He was on strong medication. This note doesn't override the legal documents he signed when he was well. Her lip trembled, but then her eyes hardened. You manipulated him, she snapped. You turned him against me while I was working in New York. No, Emily, I said softly. We were here. We took him to the doctor. We changed the house for his wheelchair. We played chess with him and listened to his stories. Where were you? She jumped up, grabbing her purse. This isn't over, she shouted. I'll get a lawyer, you'll see. She stormed out, slamming the door. James and I exchanged a look. We both knew she wouldn't give up easily. I carefully put the papers back in the envelope. Do you think she'll really get a lawyer? I asked. James sighed. Probably, but we have everything in order, thanks to you. I nodded, remembering George's warnings. Your sister might try to take the house. He had told us. She always feels like she deserves more. That's why he had made sure everything was legally transferred to us. I looked around the living room, the floors we had restored, the old molding, the family pictures on the walls. This wasn't just a house. It was our home, full of love and memories. Emily had a note, but we had something stronger: the truth, the law, and years of care for George. Still, as I watched the sunset through the stained glass windows, I had a feeling this fight wasn't over. Emily didn't waste any time. Within days, letters from her lawyer started arriving, demanding documents and threatening legal action. But what happened next shocked us. One afternoon, I came home from work and found a real estate agent walking through our house, measuring things. Emily stood in the hallway, smiling smugly. What's going on? I asked, dropping my bag. Just getting the house assessed, Emily said sweetly. My lawyer says we need to know its market value before the case moves forward. The real estate agent looked uneasy. I didn't know there was a dispute over ownership, she said, glancing between us. There isn't, I said firmly. This is private property and you're trespassing. You need to leave. Emily's smile faded. Don't be difficult, Olivia. This will go smoother if you just cooperate. I pulled out my phone. You have 2 minutes to leave before I call the police. How did you even get in? Emily held up a key, Dad's spare. Found it in his study when I was helping clean up. The real estate agent quickly packed up her things and hurried out, apologizing. Emily, however, didn't move. You can't keep denying me what's mine, she said angrily. I know Dad wanted me to have this house. You and James tricked him when he was weak. Just then, our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Sullivan, appeared in the doorway. Is everything okay? She asked. I saw a stranger walking around with a measuring tape and got worried. Everything's fine, I assured her. Just a misunderstanding about property access. Mrs. Sullivan looked at Emily and frowned. Oh, it's you. You know, I was just thinking about your father. Such a shame how little you visited him in his last years. Emily's face turned red. I was busy with my career. Not everyone has time to play nurse. Mrs. Sullivan's voice turned cold. No, but most people make time for their dying father. I remember George telling me how grateful he was for Olivia and James. He said they were the only ones who truly cared about him, not just his house. Emily grabbed her purse and stormed out. You'll be hearing from my lawyer, she yelled as she left. After she was gone, Mrs. Sullivan turned to me. I have something for you. I've been holding onto it for the right time. She pulled an envelope from her pocket. George gave me this 2 months before he passed. He told me to give it to you if Emily ever tried to take the house. Inside was a letter written in George's clear handwriting from before his illness worsened. It detailed how Emily had repeatedly tried to get him to sign the house over to her, how she only visited when she wanted something, and why he made sure the property legally went to James and me. He knew, Mrs. Sullivan said. He knew she would try this. That's why he had me witness him signing the house over to you and James. I was there at the lawyer's office. Tears welled up in my eyes. Even after he was gone, George was still protecting us. That evening, when James came home, I showed him the letter. He read it silently, his jaw tightening. I knew she was selfish, he said finally. But this trying to sell our house, bringing a real estate agent in while we're still living here, that's a new low, even for her. We called our lawyer and updated him on everything. He was particularly interested in Emily breaking in and trying to get the house appraised. This actually helps your case, he said. She's showing a pattern of interfering with your legal rights. If she sues, this will weaken her claim. The next day, we changed the locks and installed security cameras. We also filed a police report. not to press charges, but to document Emily's actions. As we took steps to protect our home, I thought about George. He had spent his last years here, watching the neighborhood kids play from his favorite chair by the window. "Promise me you'll keep it in the family," he had told us one evening, his voice weak, but his mind sharp. Not just as a property, but as a home. Emily, she'd sell it in a second. She never understood what makes a house special. We had promised, and now we were fighting to keep that promise. This wasn't just about legal rights anymore. It was about honoring George's wishes. That night, as James and I sat on the porch swing George had built years ago, both our phones buzzed with messages from Emily. She demanded a family meeting, claiming she had undeniable proof that the house was hers. "Should we go?" James asked, sounding exhausted. I squeezed his hand. "Yes, let's hear her out. But this time, we'll be ready with proof of our own." We sat in silence, watching the sunset paint the sky in orange and purple, the same view George had loved. Whatever Emily had planned, one thing was certain. This house, with all its memories, was worth fighting for. The family meeting was set for Sunday afternoon at our house. Emily arrived with her lawyer in tow, dressed like she was heading to court rather than a family discussion. I noticed she was clutching a folder, presumably containing her irrefutable evidence. What she didn't expect was to find Mrs. Sullivan and our family lawyer already seated in our living room. "What are they doing here?" Emily demanded, her confident facade cracking slightly. "They're witnesses," I replied calmly. "Mrs. Sullivan to George's wishes, and Mr. Parker to the legal aspects of property ownership." Emily composed herself quickly and sat down, smoothing her skirt. "Fine. Let's get this over with." She opened her folder with flourish. "I have proof that Dad was coerced into transferring the property. Medical records showing he was on heavy medication when you convinced him to sign it over." Her lawyer laid out several documents, including pharmacy records from the last 6 months of George's life. "As you can see," he began, "Mr. Harrison was on strong pain medication that could have impaired his judgment." I couldn't help but smile. Mrs. Sullivan leaned forward, adjusting her glasses. "Those records are from 2023, dear. The property transfer was completed in 2018, 5 years before George became ill." Emily's lawyer frowned, quickly reviewing the dates. Her case was unraveling before it began. But the note," Emily sputtered. "He wrote that he wanted me to have the house." Mr. Parker, our lawyer, cleared his throat. "Yes, about that note. We had it analyzed by a handwriting expert. He produced a report. The writing shows signs of severe impairment, consistent with someone on heavy medication. Moreover, it's not legally binding and doesn't override the properly executed property transfer from 5 years prior." Emily's face reddened. "This isn't fair. I'm his daughter. I deserve." "What exactly do you deserve, Emily?" James interrupted, his voice uncharacteristically hard. "The house you never helped maintain, the home where others cared for our father while you were too busy to visit." Mrs. Sullivan pulled out George's letter, the one she'd been keeping. "Perhaps we should read what your father really thought." As she read George's words aloud, detailing Emily's neglect and attempts to acquire the house, tears formed in Emily's eyes, not of sadness, but of rage. "You all planned this," she accused. "You turned Dad against me." "No, Emily," I said softly. "You did that yourself. Every time you skipped a holiday, every time you ignored his calls, every time you asked about the property instead of his health." Her lawyer, looking increasingly uncomfortable, gathered his papers. "Miss Harrison, I believe we should discuss our options privately." But Emily wasn't finished. She stood up, pointing at me. "You're not even blood family, you just married in. This house should stay with real family." "Family isn't about blood, Emily," Mrs. Sullivan interjected. "It's about who shows up, who cares, who makes a house a home." George understood that. Emily stormed out, her lawyer trailing behind. The slam of the door echoed through the house. The same sound we'd heard countless times during her teenage tantrums years ago. In the following weeks, we received notice that Emily had dropped her claim to the house. Her lawyer's letter included a formal apology for the unauthorized entry and attempted property assessment. We later heard through family friends that she'd taken a job offer in California, as far from the house and its memories as she could get. James and I spent that summer restoring George's garden, the one he'd tended so carefully. We planted his favorite roses and set up the bird feeders he'd love to watch. One evening, as we sat on the porch swing, Mrs. Sullivan joined us with a photo album we'd never seen before. "George gave me this too," she said. "Pictures of this house through the years, the children growing up, the family gatherings, the quiet moments. He wanted you to have it, to remember why he chose you to continue its story." As we flipped through the pages, we saw the house through George's eyes, not as property to be claimed, but as a home where life happened, where memories were made, where love grew. The final page held a note in George's handwriting, dated just before the property transfer, to James and Olivia. "You've made this house a home again. Thank you for giving me peace in knowing its future is in the right hands." We still get Christmas cards from Emily, impersonal and signed with just her name. But the house remains what George wanted it to be, a family home, filled with love, laughter, and the kind of care that can't be measured in property values or legal documents. Sometimes, when the evening light hits the stained glass windows just right, I swear I can feel George's presence, smiling at how his final wishes were honored. Not just about the house, but about understanding what really makes a family. And in the end, that's what this fight was really about, not just bricks and mortar, but the heart and soul of a home that was entrusted to those who truly understood its worth. "You're not really our kind, dear," Patricia said with a honeyed smile, bearing the entrance to her opulent home. The glow of the Christmas tree flickered through the grand bay window behind her, illuminating a dining table set with polished silver and heirloom china. "We prefer to keep our Christmas dinner intimate." I stood motionless in the snow, the homemade apple pie cradled in my hands, its warmth quickly leaching into the frigid December air. My breath curled in misty tendrils before me. Beside Patricia, my husband James shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. The silence was deafening. "My name is Olivia. I was 32, and this was supposed to be my first Christmas with my husband's family. We had been married for 6 months, but despite my efforts to bridge the gap, the Harrisons had made their disdain clear. A simple girl from a middle-class background was not the future they had envisioned for their golden boy. But James and I are married," I said, steadying my voice, determined not to waver. "That makes me family." Patricia's smile widened, sickly sweet, her red lips curving with something close to amusement. "Marriage is just a legal contract, dear. It doesn't grant you class." She let the last word linger in the cold air like an unspoken accusation. Over her shoulder, I spotted James's sisters, Madison and Elizabeth, whispering, their designer gowns catching the chandelier light in delicate shimmers. His father, Richard, stood by the fireplace, his back deliberately turned. I turned to James, my heart lodged in my throat. "James?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Maybe it's better if you go home, Liv," he mumbled. "I'll talk to them. We can celebrate tomorrow, just us." The betrayal struck harder than the winter wind. I had spent 6 months enduring their subtle jabs, showing up to their charity functions, playing the part of the dutiful wife, only to be dismissed like an unwelcome guest. "Of course," I said, gripping the pie dish tighter. "Enjoy your intimate dinner." As I turned, Patricia called after me. "Owen dear, you can leave the pie. We already have one from Constantine's bakery, the best in the city." I didn't stop. The pie was mine. A recipe passed down through generations from a grandmother who had taught me that love was measured in effort, not in price tags. The drive home was a blur of snow and city lights. Boston lay beneath a pristine white blanket, serene and indifferent to my humiliation. I pulled up to our apartment, quaint as the Harrisons called it, and let the first tears fall in the quiet of the car. My phone buzzed. A message from James. "They just need time. Don't take it personally." I exhaled shakily, as if being turned away from my husband's family home. Told I wasn't good enough, wasn't deeply personal. Another buzz. Madison this time. "Nothing personal, Olivia. But Christmas at the Harrisons is a tradition. Maybe next year, if you've improved." Attached was a picture of them around the dinner table, all smiles, crystal flutes raised in a toast. I wiped my tears and straightened my shoulders. They didn't know about the letter I'd received last week, the one I had planned to share tonight, foolishly thinking it might change how they saw me. Another buzz. "Sophie, my best friend. Still on for New Year's. The renovations are almost done." A slow smile crept onto my lips. They had no idea. My grandmother hadn't just left me her pie recipe. She had left me everything. The historic Hamilton House, one of the most coveted estates in New England, now belonged to me, the very property the Harrisons had been vying to purchase for years. And in just a few weeks, it would be the setting for the most prestigious event of the season. Definitely, I texted back. Send out the invitations tomorrow. Make sure the Harrisons get theirs. I set the pie on the counter and unfolded my grandmother's letter once more. My dearest Olivia, it read, Hamilton House isn't just bricks and mortar. It's a legacy. True class isn't about where you come from, but how you carry yourself. Use it wisely. Oh, I intended to. James called 3 times that night. Each one went to voicemail. Tomorrow, I would deal with his apologies. Tonight, I had a party to plan and a lesson in class to deliver. As my grandmother always said, living well is the best revenge. The next morning, James found me methodically packing my suitcase. Liv, please, he murmured, lingering in the doorway like a shadow. You know how they are. They'll come around. I folded a sweater with careful precision, my movements slow, deliberate. You're right, James. I do know how they are now. And more importantly, I know how you are too. His brow creased. What's that supposed to mean? I met his eyes in the mirror, my expression unwavering. It means I watched my husband stand by in silence while his family humiliated his wife on Christmas Day. And that tells me everything I need to know. He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair, a habit I once found endearing. Now it felt like a performance. Where are you even going? Sophie's. I zipped up my suitcase. I need space to think. I did mention that Sophie's meant Hamilton House. That revelation could wait. James's phone buzzed, the screen flashing with a new message. Madison's name. I caught the words before he could turn it over. Daddy's furious about Olivia's dramatic exit last night. She's embarrassing the family name. A hollow laugh escaped my lips. Your sister seems quite concerned about the family name, I said coolly. You should go comfort her. Liv, don't be like this. Like what, James? Someone who expects basic decency. Someone who thought her husband would stand up for her. I pulled up my suitcase handle. You should go. I'm sure they're waiting for you at their precious after-Christmas brunch. He reached for my arm as I passed, his touch hesitant. At least tell me when you're coming back. I gently pried his fingers away. When I figure out if I want to. The drive to Hamilton House wound through Boston's historic district, past elegant townhouses and manicured gardens. My grandmother's home, now mine, stood at the end of Beacon Street, its red brick facade and stately white columns exuding quiet power. Sophie was already waiting on the front steps, clipboard in hand. The contractors just finished the ballroom, she announced as I stepped out. Wait until you see it. Inside, the house was a breathtaking fusion of historic charm and modern refinement. Crystal chandeliers gleamed from carved ceilings, state-of-the-art lighting accentuating century-old artwork. The ballroom, framed by floor-to-ceiling windows and a marble fireplace, stole my breath. The invitations went out this morning, Sophie continued, including a special hand-delivered one to the Harrison family. A slow smile curled my lips. I could already picture Patricia's expression when she received the embossed invitation to the most coveted event of the season. The Hamilton House New Year's Eve party had been a Boston institution for decades, until my grandmother's illness put it on hold. Now, its revival was the talk of the city. Any responses yet? Sophie glanced at her phone. 3 already, including Elizabeth Harrison. She called twice to confirm it wasn't a mistake. Oh, it's no mistake. I ran a hand along the mahogany banister as we ascended the grand staircase. They wanted class. They'll get it. The RSVPs flooded in over the next few days. Politicians, art collectors, socialites. James called daily, his messages growing increasingly bewildered. I let them both a voicemail. A week before New Year's Eve, I was reviewing the catering menu when the doorbell rang. Through the ornate glass panels, I spotted Patricia Harrison standing stiffly on my porch, clutching the invitation as if it might burn her fingers. I opened the door slowly, savoring the way her gaze flickered over the grand foyer behind me. Mrs. Harrison, I greeted smoothly. What a surprise. Olivia? Her eyes darted from me to the house. What are you doing here? I leaned against the doorframe, unhurried. I live here. Would you like to come in? The contractors just installed the new Italian marble in the conservatory. She hesitated before stepping inside, her designer heels clicking against the polished herringbone floors. But this is Hamilton House. It belongs to my grandmother, I supplied. And now it belongs to me. Shock, disbelief, and then something close to panic rippled across her face. You're Eleanor Hamilton's granddaughter. The very same. I gestured to the drawing room, where framed photographs of my grandmother and me graced the mantel. Tea. Patricia lowered herself into an antique armchair, still gripping the invitation. But you're a librarian. You live in that little apartment. I poured tea into my grandmother's wedgwood cups, unbothered. I am a librarian, and I love my job. But I chose that apartment because it was convenient. I swept a hand toward the vaulted ceiling, the sprawling estate. This is my heritage. Her gaze lingered on the grand staircase, the priceless artwork. And the New Year's Eve party? It's really happening here? It is. I set a cup of tea in front of her. Consider your family's invitations my Christmas gift, since I wasn't able to give you my pie. Her lips parted, understanding dawning. She had spent years vying for a seat among Boston's elite, only to throw away a connection to its true aristocracy. Does James know? Not yet. I sat back, crossing my legs. I had planned to tell everyone at Christmas dinner, but, well, we know how that turned out. She set down her teacup with trembling fingers. Olivia, there seems to have been a misunderstanding. I arched a brow. No misunderstanding, Mrs. Harrison. You made your feelings quite clear. I rose, signaling the conversation's end. I look forward to seeing you at the party, if you choose to attend, of course. I wouldn't want you to feel uncomfortable around people who aren't your kind. Her mouth pressed into a thin line, but she said nothing as I walked her to the door. She hesitated on the threshold, taking in the towering crystal chandelier one last time. Then, without another word, she stepped outside. The door clicked shut behind her with a finality that sent satisfaction humming through me. Somewhere across the city, James was probably still wondering why I hadn't answered his calls. He would find out soon enough. They all would. Hamilton House's New Year's Eve party was 4 days away, and I had a statement to make. New Year's Eve arrived with a soft layer of snow, making Hamilton House look like a magical place. Twinkling lights decorated the garden, and inside, the ballroom was warm and bright from the crystal chandeliers. I stood at the top of the grand staircase, adjusting my grandmother's sapphire necklace. My blue silk dress was simple but elegant, just like my grandmother always said, true class doesn't need to be loud. They're here, Sophie said beside me. The Harrisons just arrived. All of them. I watched from above as they walked in. Patricia wore an expensive new dress. Richard looked uncomfortable in his tuxedo, and Madison and Elizabeth whispered excitedly. Then there was James, my husband, his eyes searching the crowd, looking nervous. Mrs. Hamilton Pierce, the butler announced, using my full name for the first time. The room fell silent as I walked down the stairs. James's face showed shock, confusion, and then understanding. He started to move toward me, but Sophie smoothly stepped in his way. Welcome to Hamilton House, I said to everyone. My grandmother loved this party. She believed in bringing people together to celebrate new beginnings. Tonight, we continue that tradition. The evening was lively. I greeted guests, shared memories of my grandmother, and watched as many people came to pay their respects to Eleanor Hamilton's granddaughter. The Harrisons stood in their own little group, watching everything. Finally, James managed to reach me. Why did you tell me? He asked quietly. I tried, I said. I was going to announce it at Christmas dinner, but I wasn't good enough for your family's table. Liv, I'm so sorry. If I had known. That's the problem, I interrupted. It shouldn't matter who my family is or what I own. You should have stood up for me because I'm your wife. Before he could answer, Patricia appeared. Olivia, darling, she said sweetly, as if she hadn't thrown me out of her house a week ago. What a wonderful party. Just like your grandmother's. You know, I always admired Eleanor. Did you? I asked with a polite smile. Funny, she never mentioned you. Patricia hesitated. Well, we were in the same social circles. My grandmother welcomed everyone, Mrs. Harrison. She taught me that true class isn't about money or status. It's about how you treat people. I looked at both her and James. That's why I'm announcing tonight that Hamilton House will become a cultural center. We'll have reading programs for kids, art classes for the community, and this New Year's Eve party will continue, but as a charity event. James stared. You're opening the house to the public, to everyone, I said. No one will be judged for who they are. Later that night, just before midnight, James found me in the library, my grandmother's favorite room. I've been a fool, he admitted. Yes, you have. Can we start over? Try again. I looked at him, really seeing him for the first time. That depends. Will you stand by me, even when it means standing up to them? I will, he said firmly. I should have done it long ago. You're my family. Live. The rest is just noise. Prove it, I told him. Help me with the cultural center. Show me you understand what really matters. James glanced around the room, the books, the cozy chairs, the pictures of my grandmother teaching me to read. I'd like that, he said softly. I want to be part of this. At midnight, as people cheered in the ballroom, I thought about my grandmother's words, use the house wisely. Looking at James's hopeful face, Patricia's embarrassed one, and the joy this house could bring to others, I knew I had found my way. Happy New Year, I said, holding out my hand. James took it, knowing this wasn't forgiveness yet, but a chance to earn it. Happy New Year. Live. Sometimes the best way to move forward isn't revenge, it's rising above. It's turning pain into something good. As the first notes of Auld Lang Syne played, I smiled. This really was a fresh start, not just for me and James, but for everyone who would step through these doors in the years to come. Because that's what real class is.